Well, thank you all for coming out. I've really been looking forward to this panel. My name is John Bartkus. I run the mobile track for SuperNova South. And I think women should rule the world. So I specifically put this panel, well, with the exception of one specific woman, but we won't get into that. But that's why I specifically put this panel together. I'm very interested. This is the third year I've had this panel. It's called Crystal Balling, where we just ask the professionals to let us know what they feel the future of mobile will lead for their industries. So first it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Ms. Dana Barrett. She's a TV and radio personality and business commentator, known for her smart and engaging interview style and her personal approach to broadcasting. She is currently the host of the Dana Barrett Show, which runs every day, weekdays at 9 a.m. on Biz 1190. So please join me in welcoming Dana Barrett.
You can tell since it was all good things that I wrote that myself. She's smart, she's funny, she's fabulous. She wears great shoes. Well, I hope everybody has tuned into the radio show, and if not, there will be a quiz on tomorrow's show, so hopefully you'll all tune in tomorrow. I'm going to introduce our panelists just kind of by name and title, and then I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves rather than me just talk at you for however long and be wrong. So we'll just do it that way. So down at the far end, Alia Lamborghini is here. She is the Senior Vice President of Sales North America for Millennial Media.
Wowza. Hi, everyone.
So give us a little bit of what you do, what Millennial Media does, just kind of the short version, and maybe add right to the end of that how kind of the future of mobile will kind of affect your company, your job, what you do.
Yes, so excited. So I've been with Millennial Media since 2010, specifically in the Atlanta market until I moved up to New York about 6 months ago. I'm coming back to the Atlanta market just as soon as I can get here. Yeah, that's right.
Woo woo.
But I think what we're doing at Millennial right now, and what we really evolved from being a huge mobile ad network, the first mobile ad network with, prior to Google, it was AdMob, prior to iAd, it was Quattro. So back in those early days, when people just started really monetizing mobile applications and mobile web inventory. What we're doing now, there was just an announcement a couple weeks ago about how AOL has actually intends to acquire Millennial Media. That deal will close in October. Verizon acquired AOL for $4.5 billion some months back. So it's interesting to see consolidation in what we're doing in mobile, and it's also interesting to see a phone company, a traditional phone company like Verizon, make a big investment into mobile advertising as the future. So that's kind of what I'm excited about in our industry going forward.
Awesome. All right, moving on to the center chair. Amy Shear is here, the Executive Creative Director with CNN Digital. So same thing, Amy, a little bit of your background, what you do at CNN, and same question.
Sure. So I run the digital design department in Atlanta, and we have a large department, and we basically service or support the editorial design team as well as the product team. So it's really kind of great because everyone gets a chance to touch different aspects of the business. Most recently, we launched with Snapchat Discover as one of our great areas where it was a hybrid of editorial product, and it's been a great sandbox for us to test different ways of storytelling with CNN content.
Interesting. We might get into that later.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, and right next to me, we've got Edie Kirkman, Director of Mobile Solutions for InterContinental Hotels Group. Edie, same deal.
Okay. I've been in Atlanta for a long time, and I've been in digital for a long time. And I joined IHG about 6 months ago now, and I'm running their mobile solutions group, which builds mobile products, including mobile app, mobile web, and then also anything with connectivity when you really think about it. It's really about mobility and not mobile as far as your device. And then the exciting thing right now that's happening in the industry, and also especially for IHG, is that we're growing the digital experience that's during your hotel stay. So usually, you go somewhere, you have to pick out the phone and get more towels and things like that. How do we interact with our guests differently? Like, you go out somewhere and you're like, oh, I forgot my towel. to get extra towels for when we come back and it's going to be raining and stuff and I'm going to be dripping wet. And instead you can just put it into your app and then ask for room service, and then they will have the stuff ready for you when you get there. So that's kind of the new frontier, and you'll see a lot of activities with all hospitality groups working on mobile key and anytime kind of check in, check out, all those type of things to improve the stay experience. So that's really the new area of growth for hospitality.
All right, well, that is a perfect lead into sort of my first official question, and this will just be for all of you guys, so feel free to just jump in. But obviously, we want to get into the future. That's the point of the crystal ball, right? But I want to sort of talk about what are the current trends right now that you think are driving the future of mobile? Like, which things are really going to make an impact? Is it that the phone screens are getting bigger? Is it that now tablets and laptop hybrids are kind of existing? Is it wearables? Is it Internet of Things? Like, which trends that we're seeing now do you think are really going to drive us forward? You want to go first?
Well, I would say from a content standpoint, like what we're finding, it's all about content. So, and I know with the recent developments with Apple News and stuff, and ad blocking, it's really removing those barriers, and it's all about how do you visually tell a story. So, for us, it's fascinating because we're a video company, but an older, media company where we're going to have to rethink how we shoot video, specifically for the phone. It's going to have to be vertical shot, which is across such a complex organization. You would think it would be an easy thing, but it's going to take some teaching, I think, to get people to shoot in that format. And then set design, different organizations are now playing with, what is the set and the background imagery look like as you're shooting content for that format. So those are just kind of examples of how the presentation is going to change from a content standpoint.
Interesting. So what do you think, Edie? I mean, which things that are currently happening are really going to drive the hotel business? You mentioned a couple of them already. That's why I said it was a good segue. You talked about mobile keys and some of those services. Give me some more of that.
For us, in addition to content, it's really about context. So with your device, it's the only thing that knows where you are, and in relation to where you want to be or where you are currently, where you will be tomorrow versus today. So we need to leverage all of these digital touch points of data and figure out how do we fast track people to understand their intent and drive them there automatically. So we know that, okay, you just landed at the airport and it's not in your home city, but it's in the same city as you have a booking or reservation for tonight. So what do we push to you at that time to make your travel experience easier and help you get to your destination easier? Should we just call Uber for you automatically, for example?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So, we talk about wearables a lot, so I think it would be a little bit boring if I said, wearables is the thing. I also read an Onion article the other day, which means I read the headline because that's the funny part, that said, Google invents new artificial limb to attach wearable device to. So you got to call the Onion on Twitter. If you leave with one thing, it really brightens your day. But I think it's actually a little bit beyond wearable and more into maybe even implanted device for health, medical, tracking. Like instead of having a Fitbit, perhaps you have a Fit chip, right? And you're it's recording sleeping patterns. I mean, a little bit creepy, but if someone had told you 10 years ago that you went like this to this thing in your hand and a car pulled up and they knew your name and had your credit card information, you would have thought that was creepy too. So I'm really into the whole idea of how can we get utility out of sort of virtual and augmented reality that might even be implanted potentially?
I'm going to go off script because that's what I do.
Do it.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and I want to ask you about it as it relates to the ad world, because the more things become wearable and sort of less screen-oriented, then how do you advertise? If you're, already we have that issue with a tiny, tiny little watch, right? I don't want to see an ad on that, right? So how do you... This is going to be a huge issue, I think, going forward, because how do you do it?
So I think as ad providers or sort of the stewards of advertising brands, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, IHG, AT&T, inside of mobile content or wearable content, we really have to start getting paying a little bit more attention to the value that you provide for the consumer and the relevance, which we've been trying to pay attention to for a long time. But imagine you're driving your car 10 years from now. You're probably not driving it. Actually, it's being driven for you because it's a driverless car. And on the dashboard as you're navigating is some sort of, virtual augmented reality that actually shows you street signs. And instead of Google Maps and you looking at your device like this, it's all here
On your windshield.
virtually out in space because of a chip that you have in your windshield. How do you not mess with that experience, but also insert some messaging into that? Because wouldn't that be a valuable thing for InterContinental Hotels or CNN to sponsor? Like, all of this great information that makes your life easier is brought to you by, CNN or IHG or whoever else. So that's kind of, I think, the consumer expects utility. We don't like to pay for anything. There's some level of exchange that we understand in terms of, advertising for utility, and then how can we make sure that that is a good experience?
So, it's interesting when I was thinking about what questions we should kind of tackle on this panel, I was sort of thinking about what does it really mean to be mobile? And to your point, it's really about mobility, not about these particular devices right now. And you did this. You brought up the driverless car, but in a way, what is that but a mobile device now, right?
Yeah.
And so as the type of devices change, and we can kind of make up all kinds of stuff, and we will, because we're looking in the crystal ball, right? But I want to look backwards for a second, and because there have been some dinosaurs, right? There have been some technologies that have bubbled up and died. Yeah. So before we get too far into the future, are there any that we kind of see bubbling up right now that we think are just not going to last and may go extinct?
GPS device, camera replaced by phone.
Right.
Wallet, if that's a device.
Yeah, but do we think that?
Yeah. So I think
Monitor.
when you look at things that the development rate and the replacement rate, especially it's really based on people's consumption and their habits and things like that. So if you look at Generation Z, so the generation after millennials.
I didn't know they had a name.
Yes, Z.
Wow, I learned something.
So X, then Y, then Z.
Got it.
Yeah, then double A again maybe, like Excel. And for that particular generation, they are all about digital media consumption and not traditional channels. So when there's a forecast, like by 2020, 3/4 of all mobile bandwidth is going to be video. And then, this generation is different than any other. Like, they don't really care about superstars. Like, forget about Tom Cruise or whoever. Right. They don't even know who that is. But as far as Minecraft stars, like, they really want authentic, real people with real interests that they follow. And then they watch them on YouTube channel nonstop. And then all the famous celebrities of that generation, if we're not in that generation, we will have no idea who in the world they are. So, it's really behavior trends, and then how it impacts what companies deliver, and then how do we provide value to each generation so the company, the corporation, whichever one it is, can continue to exist. So in that space, when you think about it, what does it mean to Comcast? What does it mean to cable networks? What does it mean to traditional, everything you see on the TV? When in reality, they don't really see it that way. They're like, my 5-year-old's like, on the weekend, she's like, Mommy, I want technology. And I said, what do you want? And she goes, I want a screen. And she does not care what screen it is. She's like, I just want a screen. And then she's like, let me watch TV, let me look at my iPad, let me play with your phone. I don't really care. So in that circumstance, and they replace all the different content delivery mechanism we know today.
Well, so Amy, let's take this to a content discussion, because when you talk about things going extinct, right? I mean, there's been digital media for a long time now, but there is still a lot of interest in traditional movies and television, and yeah, sure, people are watching them in different ways, but I mean, I have a millennial child who watches YouTube videos nonstop, but also watches TV shows. Now, granted, she consumes them on Netflix, but she still wants to see a produced TV show. And, if she's going for news, she's still maybe looking at the CNN Snapchat, right? So they're still consuming a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where we're at right now, is especially when the media landscape is changing so rapidly. Because I think with Because the other part that's happening too is that people are going to Netflix, there's going to be the a la carte options for cable, so all of that traditional model is going away. But I do think, I do think people are looking for personalities, to your point, and so they could find those personalities wherever, so that it does put into question branding, right? Because a brand isn't really associated as much for the brand, it's really based on the personality there. So it's interesting because we're really playing with that whole idea with what we're doing. We're calling it off channels. So Snapchat, Apple News, Facebook Instant Article, all of those platforms for us are ways and where we're trying to kind of repackage and play in the space of what does our content mean to that particular consumer. And so, and I think we're honestly in the beginning stages of figuring that out.
But I think you just kind of mentioned a dinosaur without even really mentioning it, because cable. I mean, I think cable, right? I mean, that's the first thing you move, you get your cable set up, you know, when you're my age. But I mean,
yeah, we don't even turn on the TV.
right. I mean, I feel like that's what's actually going to go away. The way we consume all this stuff, not necessarily exactly what we consume or even who we consume it from, right? All right, so let's look into the future at some of these technologies as it relates to personal versus business, because that's another interesting thing that's happening, I think. If you look at Google Glass, for example, they sort of tried it out, a little bit of a beta with some consumer kind of people, and it was sort of a big time failure, right? Like, people got really nervous if someone had on Google Glass, maybe they're filming me, or, you know, it's just weird, you look like you're looking at me, but you're really not looking at me, it's weird, right? But now they're retooling it for business. And in business applications, in manufacturing, for example, or something like that, it makes total sense. I'm looking at my production line, and I can look right through my glasses and see all kinds of information about what's happening on the floor. But I think this could be true for a lot of these different mobile technologies, right? I mean, let's talk virtual reality. I mean, are you going to put a giant Oculus Rift on your head and walk around?
Right.
I like nice shoes, and I like my hair to look good. I'm not going to be putting on Oculus Rift.
That's definitely not happening. Have you guys seen, you can actually go on Amazon and buy Google Cardboard, which is for $15.
Yeah, it's so
your,
cool.
your own Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
I mean, we were literally running around into walls in the kitchen, checking them out. I gave 3 of them out for Father's Day. And it's really cool, but it's still pretty clunky.
Yeah.
So I think Oculus Rift is,
I'm actually really excited about VR. To tell you, virtual
Are you a
reality.
gamer? Are you a secret gamer?
Well,
She totally loves it.
Yeah, there you go. But
Anybody out here tried? Anybody
I
try
thought it was
Oculus Rift?
creepy at first, but then I saw a film that one of our producers did, and I don't know if you guys have seen the behind the scenes, but literally someone wears a helmet that's like a ball of cameras. So it's kind of like the Matrix, but mobile. you know? But what was really amazing was it was a documentary about refugees, and so what you forget is that you are completely at the mercy of the cameraman. So you only, in traditional linear filming, you're only seeing what the filmmaker wants you to see in the editor, but you actually have the luxury of seeing not only what the primary focus, but you see everything around it. And it was actually heartbreaking because you could take in details of a room that, you really saw how this one child lived. You could see the refrigerator and the paint peeling, and it was literally so emotive, and I was kind of struck by I wasn't prepared for that because I was so used to being directed, and because it was my choice, I could actually see exactly what that setting looked like.
So could you see that being a news application, a new way to film news?
I think it'll be incredibly complicated, though, because I'm not sure how you edit all that stuff together. Because you would have, I don't know, hundreds of cameras.
So do you even think there's an opportunity for editing in the future? Because everything is so
Everything's
real
raw.
time,
Well,
sort of consumer driven.
I don't know, because that's an interesting, because some of it is self, is choice, but then like with Snapchat, I think people really want bite-sized things, elements and content. So I think there's an opportunity for both. It depends on the context,
And has anybody seen augmented reality versus virtual reality? Yeah, okay, you're going to be my virtual / augmented reality guy. And that might be a different way of doing it, like where you kind of just hold your iPad up kind of thing and can kind of see different scenarios that don't really exist in a way. So maybe that's a little less.
I think Google Maps moves hopefully quickly to augmented reality, and literally street signs appear.
Yeah, that would be great.
In augmented reality where none physically exists, and you know you're on West Peachtree and not actual Peachtree.
Yes, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
So you're not walking in circles downtown.
How many times you get to the corner and you're like, really?
I
Where
don't think
am
we're
I?
that, I mean, I don't know how. Do you think we're? I would love to. Does the audience think that we're less than 5 years away from some sort of usable augmented reality in the real world? Yeah. Less than 5.
Less than 5?
Yeah. Good. Okay. Cool.
Interesting.
I look forward to that.
I know.
I'll be on time for everything.
I think we need a direct line to all these people so we can get all these great ideas to them. Somebody call Google right now.
Right.
I need that. Like I need that on my way out of here. All right, so let's get into what's on the devices a little bit. Let's talk about, and this will be a good one for you, Amy, too, but let's talk about how we want to use these devices, because right now it's like app world. Everything is an app, and there is all this, and you kind of alluded to this already with CNN putting content on Snapchat, but I think as users, we're not going to ever have thousands of apps. That's ridiculous, right? Yet all the providers out there are saying, oh, we just created this great proprietary app. If you download it, we'll do these 20 million things for you. So that has to change, right? What do we see in the crystal ball in that world? What do you envision? Are we still going to have apps, just less of them, or is there going to be some new model?
I have an idea for that.
Go ahead.
Do it.
So I think it kind of comes back to utility and location. So as soon as you start giving everybody, and I think the millennial generation is much more comfortable, and I think Mia is going to be super comfortable. She's 5, right? Harry's 3. Giving over this information for utility. So then if you're constantly connected and your location is constantly connected, then your phone or your device or whatever you have knows that you're at Atlanta Hartsfield and now you need an Uber because you landed, right? It's like, I think things get pushed to you because you allow for that flow of information. In exchange, you have very little privacy, but I don't think consumers are going to care that much because I'm willing to give up some level of privacy for an Uber waiting for me when I land. My groceries reminding me that it's Sunday and Instacart needs to deliver.
There's a lot of trends outside of the U.S. that's very different. Like U.S., we're like, okay, one app, one function, and that's it. And you have, millions of apps. And when you look at markets in Asia, especially in China, there's 600 million smartphones. And WeChat has been downloaded 600 million times. Wow. So that means every single phone has the WeChat app. And you might say, well, why is that? It's basically Facebook, instant messenger. It is also a portal, to other things. It's your payment method. It's your shopping. So they kind of created the old portal concept, like back when Yahoo first started. And then they're kind of rethinking apps as far as how do we do everything within one app. And all the marketers are on WeChat because people are not downloading their apps. But if you're on WeChat, it launches into mobile web. And then so I think the Swiss Army knife of apps is coming, that wave. And we've just not really experienced it in the States yet.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, this is not CNN related, but one of my favorite apps is the Mind Body thing, but it's connected to all kinds of classes, for everybody in the household.
Oh, that is a cool one.
It is really great, and so you are able, I think for busy moms, it's phenomenal because you could register for any kind of music lessons, swim lessons, all kinds of stuff, plus stuff for yourself. But I think that Swiss Army, scheduling kind of app is stuff to just make it easier and simple.
That stuff it feels a little bit like a pendulum to me. It's like we go for consolidation and then we go back to separation and then we go back. So I don't know if there's going to be a final feature in that way.
Yeah. What about desktop? Is there something super consolidated in the desktop space right now? Or have we completely abandoned that and just picked everything up mobilely? Like, did that ever get there? I guess not.
I think it's all about viewports. It's not about the name of it. It's like larger screen, giant screen, teeny screen, and it's like the internet right now is like a buffet of information. Like you just cannot consume enough, and people get tired of binging off the internet. So I think, the concept of apps came along. It's like, oh, it's a bite-sized, a consumable information that's targeted, towards specific thing, but I self-designate what I'm interested in. So I'm going to download this, not that, right? And then we're moving into, wearables, the watch, and then so instead of bite-sized, it's like a sip of information. You just kind of turn the wrist and you're like, oh, well, that's interesting, and then people, wearing the watch, like when I'm talking to them, I'm realizing like they're constantly looking at their watch. You're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like
Has anybody else experienced that?
yeah, they're constantly looking because it
So
buzzes them, does
annoying.
something, and then like,
Yeah.
Is it?
Right.
Well, both are rude. I don't think we address the fact that like.
and
Right.
I'm like, don't look at your watch because somebody just sent a heart to you.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's really, how do we leverage all of that? And then in the new world, how do we monetize towards it? Whatever kind of business we are, right? How do you monetize towards a sip of information rather than you have to consume the whole thing, a monthly subscription or whatever that people don't care about for the whole month? How do we handle that?
Well, that's a perfect question because I sort of alluded to that earlier, and I'm glad you brought it back up. But there is an issue with who pays because we have gotten so spoiled because of all this free stuff that's paid for by advertising that we don't want to see the advertising, or we don't think we want to see the advertising, right? But we also don't want to pay for the service.
Right.
So I want to watch CNN all day long. I don't want to see commercials. I don't want to look at CNN on my phone and see a commercial, but therefore CNN should just work for free because they love me.
Yeah.
Right?
So
And-
talk about the pendulum swinging. I think with the ad blocker thing, this is probably where you're getting. Content cannot be created for free, and good luck to all the consumers downloading ad blockers, because there's not going to be any sponsor for your content.
Well, so this
I
is
think
the
we'll-
interesting
yeah,
thing, right? Like
right.
look, nobody bought encyclopedias anymore. Wikipedia came up. Everybody complains about the fact that Wikipedia is not real, like it's made up, it's not necessarily factual, and yet it's huge, right? And so isn't the same thing in a way going to happen with content? Like, oh, I don't need to watch CNN, I can just watch YouTube. And so then all your news is just like Joe in his bedroom giving you the news, and it may or may not be factual. Sorry, Joe, if you're here. But, I mean, this is the problem, right? Aren't we going to have to retrain society to some extent to either be willing to pay or be willing to see an ad,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I think that's, really where we're putting our focus is, because that's our brand, we're trying to stay to those core, attributes. So, trust in the news and accuracy is definitely, core to that. But what I think is really interesting is one of the conversation pieces that seems like it's going to help at least our organization is developing a branded content group that does advertorials, and I know that is being done across organizations. And I'm kind of curious about your, take on that, because I think there's a little bit of skepticism, and I notice it on magazines as well, digital magazines, that, the line between advertisement and the content is getting so, like, it's hard to even tell what's an advertisement these days.
And I promise you we're doing the same thing in radio.
Yeah.
We're mixing it in because that's the only way you can do it.
Right. And so you're trying to make it, integrated, but, it does seem to blur the lines to such a degree.
So tackle that, ad girl.
Yeah, great. There's a lot of different pieces of that. One I would say is with the whole democratization of content comes an opportunity for social influence, which you could call it social influence, you could call it native advertising. It is all advertorial, right? If it's native and we're representing it to be part of the content, I mean, that's advertorial. I think advertorial kind of gets this, maybe this like old school bad rap, where everyone thinks like, I'm going to call it native and it's going to be super cool and valuable. Oh, it's advertorial, same stuff, right? So hopefully we can make it relevant enough that consumers, the average consumer, and probably not everyone in this room, because I would consider you all to be more informed than the average consumer about your choices when it comes to advertising, specifically in mobile, but hopefully we are not creating ads that are so annoying that the average consumer, like my mom, says, gosh, I wish there's a way I could figure out how to not have to see this ad again, and then she's seeking out an ad blocker. Right. So I think the conversations that we're having now with our advertising and agency partners is, let's keep it relevant, let's keep it with utility, let's not, blow off a bomb on somebody's screen and interrupt their experience, and hopefully the consumer will respect the fact that an ad is a necessary way to get to content, and we won't drive them running toward an ad blocker.
I think ads can get smarter, really.
Totally.
I mean, like, if you show me the right thing at the right time,
Great.
I will click on it, buy it. It's like, so it's really how do we get to that degree of personalization and then balance it out with privacy?
Right.
And so I think, if you're creating something relevant and of value and then targeted specifically towards me, and then at that moment that I am considering and needing, and go beyond like the constant retargeting, like the same pair of shoes following me all
I
over
know,
the
right,
web, and I'm like, I bought the shoes
Right.
already.
Once you buy the shoes,
Yeah, I
you do
bought
not want to see the
stop
shoes
at
again.
Amazon,
Right.
And, so stop being annoying, and how do you be helpful?
Yeah.
Right.
And then I think on the publisher side, the content has to be really good, right? You want to publish content that people actually want to consume and want to spend time with, because the time piece of it is also that engagement is really critical.
Well, I think we have to have a different view to the numbers in that way too, right?
Yeah,
Because to some extent, what used to be considered success, it's not going to look like that anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, there used to be
you're kidding.
three. I know. I'm dating myself with this, but there used to be 3 networks, and they
Yeah.
got all the eyeballs. Well, now there's a bajillion networks, so
Yeah.
you're never going to get that same number watching any single program, right?
Right.
Or any news channel or whatever it is. There used to be news a couple times a day. Now it's constant, and there's
Yeah.
all the different screens you can get it on. So the numbers are going to shift,
Right.
and what is success is different, right, than it used to be, and that's going to get more and more dramatic, don't you
Yeah.
think?
I think what's also scary about content is the consumer's personal curation of their own content, because I admitted that The Onion is in my Twitter feed. Well, damned if there are days when that's the only news I see, because all the rest of my Twitter feed is ad tech and my mom and a couple other people. So you do really run the risk of running around in this bubble that you've curated for yourself. And that scares me,
Yeah.
because then we're all running around in our own bubbles, not getting any exposure to other viewpoints or other things. I don't know what CNN thinks about that.
no,
but
I think
CNN's in my newsfeed too. I
Yeah,
don't use it.
that's good. Yeah. I mean, we worry about that quite a bit. It's interesting. We do a lot of projects with student groups and stuff, and I think what's really resonated with me is, again, the content has to be so powerful and compelling, because everyone has the same challenges. Everyone's really busy. There's so many inputs, and so that's why we are really shifting our strategy to this off-channel, which is Snapchat and Facebook and Apple News, because we're really feeling that in addition to our own core apps and our site, we need to be able to reach people and be relevant outside of our core platform. So.
All right, so we talked about the idea that it's not about a mobile device, it's about mobility. So I want to go even further into the future, get the crystal ball back out, and think, I'm going to just totally show my geek self right now, but let's think Star Trek for a second. Right now, we're so focused on screens.
Yeah.
Can you envision a time when some of this stuff is not screen-based? So in other words, we're there. I mean, we have some of this now with, although I think it's not very good right now, but we have, obviously Siri, and now Siri is part of Apple TV, and Amazon Echo, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And of course, you can try to talk to your GPS, although that usually makes me laugh so hard that I almost crashed the car because it never understands me. But, in Star Trek, right, they stood there and they, touched the little thing on their shirt and said, computer, make me dinner. And it did. And there are certainly some things where if I'm going to watch a news story, I might want to see a video. But if I want to get into my hotel room, I might just want to say, IHG, open my door.
Yeah, so I am going to one-up you on geekiness.
Okay, good. I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So,
This is like Geeks Anonymous.
exactly. And then you guys are all in the 12 steps.
That's right.
Siri is a classification of robotics called chatbots. And
Yeah, you win.
Yeah, can't help it. So there's actually an award every year for the best chatbot, and it's called the Laupner Award. And then, so they unofficially enter Siri last year into the contest because, Apple's not going to do that on their behalf. And out of 16 contestants, Siri, if entered, it would come out as number 14.
Yikes.
So if you think about the commercialization of technology and truly how to get technology from concepts into the world, it is a long, intense effort, especially if you're, even more geeky than a scientist that does all this. And then they create this machine learning opportunity for it, to create these chatbots. And so during the series of the competition, basically they have, it's like online chat. So they have a live person and whatever chatbot, and then a human judge do online chats simultaneously with both. And then they have to figure out which one's a person and which one is a robot. And the winner this year, it took a human judge who's supposed to be really good and in tune, and they ask him a lot of trick questions to rule out things like, are you funny, what's your favorite thing, what's your favorite poem, all sorts of stuff. And it took the human judge 3 minutes before he could figure out which one is a human and which one is a chatbot. So the implications of that is really huge. So for example, in medical, we all hear about healthcare in rural areas. There's really a shortage of nurses and overall coverage. And what if a chatbot you can call, and then you can give diagnosis stuff, and and then they can forward the information to a medical doctor. And there's actually online doctors. There's apps. There's things like that. And then you chat with a doctor, via something digital, and then they can prescribe you things. So implications of the days of call centers will be gone.
Right. Well, think about texting and driving and all the problems. If my car just said, Dana, you have a text, Amy's calling or she's texting, she says, meet her at the bar, which is of course what she would say. And then I can say, text her back and tell her I'll be there in 10.
Yeah.
I just saved myself a car accident, right?
But you won't be driving because you'll be driving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Google's going to be
But at least I won't have text neck.
Right.
Right.
No text
So
neck.
that's important.
That's good.
So yeah, I think that's kind of we're so focused on the screens in terms of mobile and the future of that. Well, okay, so then I gotta throw it over to you, because how do you advertise? Now do you go like, Dana, do you wanna hear about the grocery store up the street? If it's all in my ear, right, it's a different story.
So I think voice recognition in advertising is very interesting for sure. But if Dana, if you say, Amy says to Dana, let's meet at the Dark Horse, they can say, there's also a bar down the street called Fontaine's, and they've got dollar drafts tonight. And,
Right, and no wait or something.
Right,
I know you guys are all into dollar draft night, so we're there, right? It's you've got to offer utility.
Yeah, it's
great.
But the voice recognition thing is cool.
I mean, that's a feature that I would be really into. Look, there's something always for a screen, I think, or some version of visual.
Yeah.
But I think there is a whole auditory thing that is going to be huge. I hope it is. I think that'll save us, in a lot of different ways. All right, before we turn it over to you guys for questions, let's just move into the fantasy realm a little bit. I just want to know if there's anything in your own work life or personal life or whatever that you just think tech needs to come up with a solution, a mobile solution ideally. If you could just call the right person right now and get it done, you would. So I'll give you my example so you guys have a chance to think about it. So for me, and this can be something that you may have already heard that is in development. It just has to not exist yet. That's crystal ball. So for me, I heard about this technology that NCR is developing where as you go through the grocery store, you put your items in the grocery cart and the cart is actually checking you out. So when you get done, you just wave your Apple Pay past the front of the shopping cart and you don't have to stand in line.
Yeah.
So that is mobile. I would love to see that happen because I still don't always want to have Instacart, though sometimes I do.
Yeah.
So that's mine. So you guys have any?
So I love to cook, and then this is actually a prototype. So it doesn't exist in reality, but in concept it exists. So it's a prototype by IKEA. It's called the Living Table, and then they just debuted it recently in this Milan Expo for design. And what it is, it looks like any IKEA birch color table, with very simple design. And what it is that they figured out a way to do induction cooking, which is cooking without heat through wood.
Wow.
And it's your dinner table. And then instead of, they have the IKEA lights with the little flaps, what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
And then inside this light is a camera. And then it projects the computer, and then you can put ingredients on, I have a red pepper, I have a piece of chicken, I have this. And as you put it close together, groupings of items, recipes start popping up.
I had this idea a couple years ago and I flaked on it. It's a great idea.
We should have worked on it, Alia. We should have worked on it. And
love that.
yeah, so stuff like that, and I was like, I want to order one. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like things
Yeah.
like that. That's super cool.
That is cool.
That's
Especially
cool.
like,
Yeah.
you know, with small house movement and all that stuff going on, or you live in New York City.
Yeah.
You need one of these tables.
Or you
Yeah,
just don't
very
like to
cool.
waste asparagus, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
asparagus,
put it next to your
eggs,
chicken, that's
you know, chicken, bacon, like
Love that.
give me a recipe.
Can't wait to use that.
That's awesome.
Well, and I think there's opportunities, you know, because again, I keep hearing this from friends and colleagues and stuff, but I think there's opportunities to do something where you have, you know, some sort of situation where it's the voice activated, where there's you have your own personal assistant that helps you schedule things and, you know, keep you on time and keep you on track. And, you know, I think something of that nature would be incredibly valuable. So that all you have to do is make these choices and you're off, you know, and you can plan a trip that way. And you know,
I need that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have one, Aaliyah?
So for me, I think mine is super pedestrian, but I can't actually believe that we are still beholden to battery life issues within our devices. Like, we are innovating the shit out of everything, but at 6 o'clock tonight, this puppy's gonna be almost dead, and I might make it home because I can maybe get location to work for an Uber, or I might not. I have 2 extra batteries that may or may not be charged in my purse. I mean, it
Yeah.
just seems ridiculous to me, so I'm waiting for some sort of innovation on the battery front, or you know, you could put it down on a pad and it would, you know, zoom back up in 5 minutes or something like that.
Well,
I just can't
or you
believe
can
it.
automatically get a charge from any wood
Yeah.
surface or something.
Exactly.
That would
Yes.
be
Something. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the fun. That was the fun part. All right. Let's go to you guys. I'm sure you guys have questions. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, go ahead. To your point on battery life, my phone actually can half charge in 15 minutes.
What is the new Google phone?
Google Nexus.
Oh,
that's
nice.
great.
So we're getting there.
Like,
Okay,
product
got it.
plug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He works for Millennial Media, by the way, not Google.
Nice. He's a plant.
Yeah.
This is a great conversation. I'd like to give a panelist take on 2 emerging trends, but like on the radar now, right? So the first is streaming apps like Periscope, Meerkat. What does that mean to your business? And then the second is 5G connectivity. So in 3 or 4 years when internet speeds are blazing fast, completely ubiquitous, all around us, how does that change the game?
Who wants to take that? I think CNN, Amy. I think you need to take
Yeah,
Periscope first.
Well, we're dabbling in Periscope, which is really, it's pretty fascinating. We're actually been doing some, you know, social media outreach with Periscope regarding debates. So I think the jury's kind of out. Like, I think we've been doing all this experimentation, but I don't think we've really figured out the best way to incorporate it into the storytelling. So that's kind of like, we have all these different components, and I think that's one of the challenges that we face as an organization is, like, you know, how are you putting these pieces together so it's compelling for the audience, you know? But maybe it has to be done in separate ways.
I think Periscope kind of had this like Arab Spring moment, right?
Yeah. You're probably right. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's
Be everywhere.
This
Does everybody in here have Periscope on their mobile
Possibly.
devices? Raise your hand if you have Periscope. Oh, it's a pretty good percentage. Does everybody use it all the time, or did you
never
just
use
download it and then
Yeah.
not so much?
It doesn't matter what the technology is. I think it's really about authenticity is what people are craving for. And, you know, for us, we have the Hotel Indigo brand, which is all about local neighborhoods. And then so, you know, like the Indigo at the airport, the guy grows his own herbs, and then he's like, you know, partner with Atlanta beer companies to make his own beer. And it's really through storytelling. And then how do you kind of do word of mouth? And how do you build a following? And so no matter what brand that you are, how do you leverage that? Because that's what people are most receptive to.
Do you think Periscope could also end up being kind of, you know how Twitter is like partly, it's all great for news and whatever, but it's also a big complaint?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, like it's
Yeah.
where you do your customer service complaining because you get attention.
Yeah.
I could see Periscope being like, you know, I'm sure nothing would ever go wrong at IHG, but let's say I'm at one of the competitor hotels and I'm like, look at this,
Yeah.
no towels.
Yeah.
This place stinks, you know, and then you're tagging them, and then
Yeah.
you know, I could see that happening. I might
Definitely.
use it for that.
Yeah.
Never at IHG, of course.
Because we have an excellent social team.
Yeah, of course. And what was part 2 of your question?
5G connectivity, so faster than fiber speeds. Verizon, or soon to be current company, will be launching this end of faster than home internet speed, much faster, everywhere, in your pocket, all the time. So HD movies in the center.
Yeah.
Anybody want to comment on how that's going to change their world, their business world?
I mean, I think for us, I mean, that'd be phenomenal because you could watch any, thousands of clips of videos and there's, barely any load time because the load time is what kills us a lot of time.
Yeah.
From an advertising perspective, if Amy's pushing out a lot of really relevant and interesting content, then that gives us more pre-roll inventory to monetize. You're probably willing to watch 2, 3, 4 second advertising clips in front of that really great content.
Yeah.
It loads quickly, no issues there.
Yeah, no frustration.
I'm always thinking about how I can make money off of
Yes.
Yeah. As you
That's
should.
good, yeah.
Do you want to comment on that at all in terms of IHG?
I think infrastructure is always a big issue because it's the most intensive part. It's not the software development aspect of things. Like if infrastructure, the pipeline is there, like we would have already eclipsed what we're doing today, definitely. So I think that kind of holds growth back a little bit, and then really it's just the infinite amount of things that you can do. With transferring data, sharing more information, and so I think overall it'll just help every single channel that's digital.
This might be a silly side question for hotels, but I mean, for a long time now, hotels have been, using all of this content and even Wi-Fi as a way to make money, charging for Wi-Fi access in some cases, but not all, and charging for movies and all that. Well, if I've got movies right here, is that a concern at all in the hotel industry?
You'll see a lot of partnerships in the hotel industry. I think creating more partnership between content is way of the future, because how do you consume content? And that's another way to monetize across different entities. And you can see like Netflix being offered in certain hotels already, and we could possibly partner with CNN in the future. So I think
Work that out, you two.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. So it's not our core competency,
Yeah.
but let's figure out what our guests are interested in, and then go after it.
Does anybody watch TV in a hotel room anymore? Raise your hand. Or do you watch your own content?
I do watch CNN. I watched CNN this morning.
Do you watch your
Me
own
too.
content? Raise your hand if you watch your own content in a hotel room.
Yeah.
I know I do. All right, take that back to corporate for us. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask, did I step on anything?
Do you want to go?
I'd just like to ask a hardware question. I mean, I have an iPhone 6, which, the other day I happened to run across my original iPhone, and I'm like, shit, how do I even use this? It's so tiny. From a technology standpoint, they can be, as tiny as we want them anymore, but they're getting bigger. And in terms of the 5G and so forth, maybe there's multitasking. Maybe it looks like CNN's screen with several things going on at once.
Yeah.
All streaming, etc. Are they going to get bigger? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we're trying to design for all screens. All our content has to be adaptive, and especially with some of the, what they call them, the phablets,
Yeah.
which are kind of like in between and stuff. But I have to agree with what you just said. Like, the challenge has been, we would love to have experiences where, for example, we have a live stream of the debate happening on Tuesday night. It'd be amazing on a mobile phone to have that plus the live block, so you're able to consume this, kind of exciting experience with our political commentary. But we don't have the infrastructure, like the technology's not there for us to have those two experiences together on a mobile device. We can do it on desktop, but we're just not able at this moment to do it on a mobile device. And I feel like, unfortunately, the experience suffers. Like, our consumers have to make a choice, And so I think that's, something that we definitely want to do in the short term, as soon as that's possible.
So what is the platform to multitask so that I can watch the debate and also on my same screen have Twitter feed?
What about the battery drain on that?
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, yeah.
Get the new
Yeah.
Google
Battery
Nexus.
drain.
Yes, there you go. Right.
All right. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Aaliyah, you mentioned, you gave the example of the passive opportunity of the alternative bar. visually drive it. Do you see that being implemented at passive opportunity stuff today in editing?
Yeah, a little bit. So push notifications are kind of creepy, I think. So you've got to be, there is some of that. There's a lot of competitive conquesting. If you're on your way to a Home Depot, you're within, a mile of a Home Depot. We can certainly serve a Lowe's ad, but we wouldn't necessarily just push it out to your phone. You would be inside another application that was location enabled, and that you wouldn't necessarily know that that was happening as a standard consumer. So, yep. Right, and I think in that specific kind of walled garden scenario, that's fine. You've opted in for push notifications. That's sort of the utility of that platform. But across a broader, network buy, you aren't necessarily setting the consumer up for a push notification. Like people talk about beacons, and beacon technology is so cool, but the scale is very small because you have to be able to deliver the ad inside of something. We're not at the point where we're just letting things fly across our screen, right? It has to be within an ad-supported application.
Yeah, I like the Minority Report Tom Cruise scenario where, he got this Japanese guy's eyes in, and then, he's walking past them, and they're like, oh, Mr. Yamamoto, and he's like, that's very, very specific targeting to your retina. I think it will come.
Yeah, we didn't talk about retina scan.
Retina, yeah. And all those things are in our future. I mean, if you look at sci-fi, starting with the Dick Tracy watch and all those type of things, and how many of these predictions came true in a span of 30 years? And then when you looked at your old phone, you're like, gosh, how did I use this? Well, lower expectations. Every year we're increasing our expectations, and then are we truly expanding our horizon, or are we really thinking incrementally just because we're able to do it?
This has been such an awesome conversation. It's all really, really interesting, and I know this question doesn't kind of bring it down.
Oh man, don't ask it. Not now. Have fun.
Downer, but so I'm working in. I just recently started working in educational technology, which by doing interviews with teachers, and I found out it's really come to light the digital divide that I don't think about. It's like 70% of students go home and they don't have a desktop computer at home, they don't have internet at home. So I'm coming in and I'm thinking, oh, they're going to do their homework on their iPad. You can't assign digital homework because most kids don't have access to do digital homework, at least on a desktop computer, or that's not Wi-Fi enabled. So, but in these disadvantaged sectors of the population, they all have smartphones. So, especially all around the world in disadvantaged pockets, everybody's got a smartphone. It might be a 4-year-old smartphone, and it might be an old smartphone that actually isn't connected to cellular, which is sitting around. What are your conversations going on at work or even in your heads? Or do you have any thought on how we can maybe even bridge that digital divide, because we have that thing there, that's there, mobile device is there. What are we doing with it to help?
I think it has to do with what the objective is. The objective is learning. Then you can transfer and go from digital to analog. And what I mean by that is that I was reading an article recently about in Africa, there's a foundation, a nonprofit, that's really thinking about the problem, of youth in Africa, and then how the population needs to be prepared, because over time they're going to be the largest group of young people in the whole world. So how do you get education to that part of the world? And the foundation basically took smartphones, and then they gave it to kind of like local schoolhouses of like 20 kids, to anybody that wants to be a teacher in that town. And then they established curriculum, which they sent to the smartphones, and then the teachers learn the curriculum, and then they transfer it back to analog, chalkboards, paper, crayons. And it's really, it's not really the end to the means, the digital aspect, it's really a delivery mechanism. and it's really a distribution mechanism of information. So I think at the end of the day, as product people, marketing people, like what is the objective we're trying to accomplish? And sometimes people immediately go, I need to build an app for that. In some cases it's like, well, let's think about all the other things that we can do to accomplish the same objective more cost effectively, faster, more localized, whatever it may be.
And don't you also think, like, if we're just looking into the crystal ball, that as the prices come down of some of these things, that, I mean, look, we will put together goodie bags. There's nonprofits here that put together, backpacks for kids with school supplies, that at some point that school supply is going to include one of these.
Right. And that's already happening now. I come from a family of educators who wonder what the hell I do all day. I have one sister is a first grade teacher in rural Maine. Every single kid in her first grade classroom has a Maine government-funded iPad that they do their work on. To your point, interesting, because I don't think they take it home and have Wi-Fi, but there is so much government funding right now. I think it took her 30 minutes to write the grant for those iPads. So it's interesting how I think in the U.S., where we're definitely a rich country, there's opportunity for that, and that's preparing those kids for the future that they probably wouldn't have had access to, prior to that grant, for sure. So there are good programs happening in the U.S. I think the greater world is a...
And to your point before, if you don't need Wi-Fi, at home anymore, because there's just cellular network and you get tied into the school's account or whatever it is.
And I think we could leverage the sharing economy more. For example, like how many of us have iPhone 4, 4S, and older at home? And then what are we doing with them? Like we all have them, maybe several iPads, and you have only so many kids that you could give old technology to at a certain point in time that's your own. And so, through the sharing economy, I think, we could do something more involved, and then by shipping all these old technology to, schools and things like that. So there's a lot of ways like Kickstarter and all these, Indiegogo, all these type of things can bring people together to meet certain needs.
How do you operate in privacy restricted environments like that? Because Germans in particular are really protective about their information. I can see you failing very soon as you're touching down free from German out.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I think it would go the way of Snapchat. Like if you have anonymity and only for that particular point in time, it's all these ephemeral technologies that's going on right now that basically keeps you anonymous. And then for your cell phone records, I see the need for that type of technology because every single text you send, AT&T, Verizon has a copy of it for years. That if you ever go to court for something, doesn't matter if you delete it off of your phone, they still have it. And so there's a great need to protect privacy. And in those countries, and if you have certain protocols that you go by, and then you do certain server wipes and you make sure you keep people anonymous, I think there's a space for that, even a space for that here.
I have to say, I don't think Snapchat actually is.
They don't, but
they save it,
Yeah, I'm sure they save it for a period of time.
Well, they're now monetizing the capability to save chats, right? Which is
Counterintuitive. Yeah.
if you're sending nude pictures of yourself around,
Right,
it's like someone's, but
Right.
great
Here,
monetization.
word of
of that.
advice: stop sending the nude
Yeah.
pictures on your phone.
Yeah, especially for politicians. That's
Yeah.
like very, very
Not a good plan.
Not a good idea.
Maybe that can be the future that we can look forward to.
Yeah.
Where people get some common sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Just saying. Anybody else before we wrap up? Go ahead.
Going way out there.
Oh,
Ray Kurzweil, a guy from Google, said that our brains will be connected to the cloud by 2030. So if that became true, how would that impact your businesses? The three of you, I guess. Actually, for all four of you, how would that be impacted if our brains were connected to the cloud?
Wow.
Well, first of all, I couldn't lie like I do now, because everyone could fact check everything I say. Should be a
That goes for
problem.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darn it. I don't know. 2030 seems awfully
Yeah.
quick. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Well, I think that would be unfortunate because I guess what I would miss is the communal aspect, right? Like our business, I think one of the strengths is the events, like debates and those community, we're much like ESPN, and so I think the the huge value is you're experiencing that event with other people, and so if everything was in the cloud, it would feel very independent, and there's value to that as well. But I would miss the communal aspect of it.
That's a very interesting concept for me too, because I think about the time when I get pissed at my husband or someone for, it's family time and he has his phone in front of his face. I think if I really dissect that, it's because I don't know what he's doing. If he had a magazine in front of his face and he was reading content, I would know that he was reading a magazine, and that would be fine with me. If someone's sitting next to you and they have your phone in front of their face, you're having this very private, like one-to-one exchange with your device that the other person doesn't know what it is. And it might be like you're looking up recipes, or you're uploading pictures of your kids or something like that. But I think going straight to the cloud would, to your point, be a very siloing type of experience.
Yeah, like I've been looking at my phone this whole time, but mostly because I didn't wear a watch. So I've just been checking the time to make sure we don't go over.
Now we know.
Yeah.
But we were wondering.
So I apologize. I'm not texting.
We thought it was
I swear.
Snapchat.
Yeah. I'm not periscoping.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think that's can you imagine a future like that? How would it affect
Your world.
Yeah.
I think it would be very different, obviously, because everybody here would all have a common set of knowledge. So we all know everything in every encyclopedia. It would then be, how do you take all that data and those stories to interpret? So it would be a whole new way of thinking about things and a level set.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think that might be like 30-30. I don't see that
Yeah.
happening.
So
That's
can I
it.
cash in my 529s and roll it to the beach house instead of the college education for my kids? Is what I want.
You absolutely, because they'll know everything
Great.
immediately as soon as they plug in.
Straight to the
Yeah,
bank.
I think I would have to go like Magneto via X-Men. Like you got to put on the helmet.
Nice.
Edie.
Yeah, I like the helmet.
And like, okay, all this, like, I would think I'm insane because like everything is talking to me all at the same time. I don't know if I could quite handle that. But in some cases, if it's like the Matrix and you just download things that you want, you're like, oh, I can fly an airplane. Awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true.
I am economically on time.
Let's
like,
assume.
oh yeah.
I would have to assume it's more like that. You'd have to have a way to tap into
Yeah, you
it.
have to be able to segment things and delete stuff, and you just need to clear your cache, right? All that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now that we're way out in like, I don't know, 50-50, I don't know where we are now. We're out of time because I checked my old iPhone to find out, and we're out of time. So let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you.